get right into it. And I'd first like to cover some general information. As you may know, there are two templates required each quarter. One of them is a Word document, which is a narrative about your progress. The other document is an Excel spreadsheet, which contains more of a quantitative portion of the report, but they're both required. You may also notice that certain portions of the Word document or certain portions of the Excel spreadsheet are locked for editing. And we did that deliberately to ensure uniformity and consistency across different reports. It also makes it easier for analysis, and we also thought it would make it easier for you to not be confusing which parts you're supposed to fill in and which ones you should not. However, would you need to make any changes to any of these two templates, you can email your grant manager and we'll try to add rows or whatever is necessary. Another important thing that is worth noting is that in order to complete these two reports, these two templates, the work plan is going to be of great help. The work plan is going to be your best friend. It is difficult to memorize exact timelines and goals. So having the work plan next to you when you fill in this progress report is going to make your life so much easier. And it's also going to make it more accurate. So we highly encourage you to have the work plan next to you, as it will provide specifics on the activities and deliverables that your organization has to agree to do each quarter. As a reminder, also, only activities that are relevant to the given quarter that you're reporting on should be reported. And these activities should have either started, are continuing, or should have been completed during such quarter. There's no need to report on any other activities that have not started, are continuing, or are not expected to be completed during that quarter. Also, we have not been requesting for evidence of completion. If you would remember, there's a column on the work plan where you stated the way that you would document, excuse me, in evidence to completion. We haven't been asking for it, but we please ask that you just keep it in hand, as we may ask for it in the future. So now let's go directly into the documents. So some of you, I think you're asking whether I was going to share any documents, and right now it's the time when I'm going to do so. So yeah, don't worry if you haven't seen any of the progress reports yet. It is okay. This is about to happen now. All right. So this is the narrative portion. It's very similar to what you received before. You will notice that most of the changes happen to the Excel spreadsheet. However, there is one that you will notice immediately, is that there was one section that was removed, the outputs and outcomes. And that is because we're capturing that in the quantitative portion. But if we start from the top, we invite you to read the instructions. And then please mark which quarter you're trying to report on. After you do so, you can click and it'll do a check mark. You can expect this portion right here to be pre-populated by your grant manager. So here it should display your name, and here should display the service categories that you stated in the work plan and the agreement. And right here is going to display your CAS or your G ID number. Now, we do please ask that any of these like gray boxes that you do not leave blank and that you fill in. So in this case, please enter the total grant funds that were spent during the reporting period. And we please ask you to do so. Is good information, for us. Received a couple of reports where this portion, was left blank, and I can see it may be a little bit easy to overlook or miss. So it is there. So please fill that in. Then the next part is this activity-related progress, and this remains the same as it was before. So we please ask you first enter the activity number. So for example, here it can be activity number 3. And then you can enter, the description, whatever happened, that quarter. Some things to keep in mind as you're filling this up is that we want to know, what things happened, related to that activity. Did you face any challenges? Did you complete it more than you thought? How did the priority population receive the services, or if it were related to staff, how, what happened. But you can describe it, right here. So challenges, progress, activity number, and then the description. Then we move into the additional information section. And right here, you can enter some success stories. We received some success stories that were written here. And then also we thank you as we received additional success stories in in videos or additional attachments. So all of these success stories are important for us so we can tell your story of success better. So we like to hear those stories. So we ask that you collect and curate those stories and then send to us. As previously said before, you can enter some of them here, and you can also send any media files, pictures, videos, articles, news articles that you want to share with us. And you can attach that in the email where you sent your report. As a reminder too, unlike the invoices that are done through our portal, reporting is done via email. So you would email your documents directly to your grant manager. The next portion after the success stories is any challenges or barriers. Now, I know that you had the opportunity here in activity-related progress to enter, any challenges or barriers you face. However, this gives you an additional opportunity if there are any other barriers that were not related to any of those work plan activities that you want to talk about, or if you want to expand or any of these challenges that you mentioned up here, you're free to do so. The last two portions relate to how can we better provide you support and demographic information. Your feedback is very important to us, so please ask you to provide any ways that we can help you better. Your responses here we truly take seriously, and we use these help us with planning our future TAs and our capacity building offerings. And most importantly, you are the ones on the front lines. You know your organization. You know how we can best help you. So if you let us know, we'll try to take that into consideration. Lastly, please include any demographic information that you have collected from your clients. And you know that this is not it's not mandatory, it's voluntary, but it helps us. So if you can do that, it would be great. And that covers the portion of the narrative document. So I'm going to change now and display the Excel spreadsheet. And here's where you'll see most of the changes, right? So this table right here was not part of the previous version. And here's some of the things that were part of the narrative report, but now they're here. But I'm gonna go through them like one part at a time, so you know how to best fill it. As with the narrative report, we asked you that you go over the general instructions, and the reason why this spreadsheet was updated is we wanted to have more high-level data, so that's why we included this. We also thought that the last version did not allow for grantees with the multiple outputs under one category to show their progress. So in order to make it a little bit more efficient and easier to understand, we redesigned it a little bit, but you will see that the idea basically remains the same. It's very similar to how you were filling the other one. So first, fill this portion up, the general information section. You can pull this information from the Word document portion that was pre-populated if it has not been pre-populated by the grant manager. You can pull that information from there. Next is this high quality data section, which is like a snapshot of the activities related to the service categories that occurred during the reporting period. And we ask you that you only enter numeric values in these blue boxes, and you limit your answers to 3 words, so about 3 words in these orange ones. As you can see, this has the intent of gathering high-level data to get an understanding at a macro level, what happened with the services that you provided. So if we go through them one by one, this was report on the number of full-time job placements that you had during the quarter, number of clients who received one-on-one mental health treatment sessions, number of clients who attended mental health treatment group sessions. Same thing for substance use disorder. Then we move to legal barriers. So what's the number of legal barriers that were removed? And next to it, what's the number of individuals with at least one legal barrier removed? And it's important to have this distinction because as if you provide legal services, you know that one individual may necessitate, multiple different services. So one individual may have like different barriers removed. That's why we have these two. Similarly, we have, the number of services that were accessed through system navigation. And again, what's the number of individuals that access at least one new service? And same thing for, linkages to medical care, number of linkages provided, a number of individuals that received at least one linkage. Then the last 3 are the expected new clients that you have for that, and the work plan is going to help you to see this number. And then let's compare that with the actual new clients that you had. So this is how many we were expecting. This is how many clients we actually had. And the only metric here that is not specific to the quarter is this total clients. So in here, we would like to know what's the total number of clients that you've had since we started the agreement, so you have to date. So this number, will obviously keep increasing, but just keep that in mind. Remember that this total clients, when we say total clients, it's total clients for the entirety of the project. And then lastly, we have these 3 orange boxes. And you can enter, text here. The other ones are numbers, but you can enter text here. We wanted to get an idea of what are the most common services that you're providing. So in this case, most common legal barrier removed, most common system navigation service accessed, and most common medical linkage provided. So some examples of this for legal barriers would be maybe helping a client gain a missing, birth certificate, driver's license denial, industrial certification suspension. For system navigation, it can be temporary housing access. And for medical linkages, it can be Medicaid enrollment, it can be transportation, other ones. But once you identify what the most common one was for that quarter, if you can enter them here with three words or less, it would be great. Next, we move into this portion. So this is probably the most different, what had the most changes. This below, even though we have combined some columns to make it a little bit easier, you'll find that is very similar to what you were doing before. So in the first column, you enter the work plan activity. The work plan activity number that corresponds to the work plan. Once again, the work plan is going to be your best friend. So I would have it next to me, and I would look at it as I go through this exercise. After you enter the activity number, then you enter the activity like high-level name. So for example, in this case, we had the activity number 1, it says that is reporting, and the action was recruit clients. Right? This is just an example. It obviously may look different for you, your activity number 1, but this is what we're using as an example. And then we move to this part right here. And this is where you enter your outputs and outcomes. So because we know that you may have multiple outputs, multiple outcomes, so we allow for that. We give you the opportunity to enter different ones. So in this case, the activity was to recruit clients. One of the outputs was to hold workshops, and the outcome was to enroll participants. We have here NA for output B and C, and outcome B and C, which means that for this example that we're using, there was only one output and one outcome. However, if you happen to have more than one outcome, then you would move to output activity B, output activity C. Now, what happens if you have more than 3 outputs or outcomes for a given activity? Then what you would do is continue below. So in this case, let's just pretend that output activity 1 had 4 outcomes. So let's just, what I'm going to do here, output activity 1, then we put recruit clients, and then in parentheses, continued. That's how you would indicate to us that an activity continues below. And then after that, you would change these ones to continue the sequence that we had before. So it would turn into, instead of A, B, C, it would continue to output D, and so on and so forth. The second column right here, this is where you enter the information. So what was the expected target? What were you expecting to achieve that month? So when it comes to holding workshops, we see here in the example that you expected to have 10 workshops. For enrolling participants from those 10 workshops, you expected to enroll 150 participants. And if we move to the next column, this is where you enter the actual numbers reached. So you expected 10, however, you had 12 workshops. Great. You expected to have 150, but things were going well that quarter and you reached 220. There was like more demand that you expected. Now we know this can go either way, right? You may expect 10 and maybe have an actual reach of 8. This is just the example. Now in the previous version, we had you enter here the information, the percentage, but we're calculating this automatically. So you don't have to do anything to this column right here. It's just calculated automatically. The last part is the notes to the reviewer. And even though you're already providing some narrative in the other document, this helps us put your numbers in perspective. So we please ask that you provide enough information so we can have a meaningful understanding of the numbers that you entered. Doesn't have to be something very long, but a few sentences, can help us understand your situation better. And feel free to add as much as you'd like, though. All right. After you're done with one activity, so in this case, we're doing activity 1, you will repeat the same steps for all the other activity numbers that pertain to that specific order. And this concludes this portion of the quantitative report. Just want to go over a few important points to wrap it up. And again, please email the reports directly to the grant manager. There's no way to do so on the online portal. So this is done via email. As a reminder to you, we like success stories and we're very grateful for those. So please collect and curate success stories each quarter. They can be detailed in the narrative portion as stated before, but videos, pictures, and links are great. An organization sent me a video of a client yesterday, so it's great to receive the success stories. Now we know that this may depend, some other clients may or may not be comfortable with this, or because of legal reasons you may or may not be able to do so. We ask that if you are able to, that you share those stories with us. However, you can share with your grant manager if this is not possible. Another thing is grant managers, we appreciate having the reports, before or on the due dates. We know things happen. So if you have something going on and you foresee that you may not be able to send the report on time, we please ask you that you contact your grant manager as soon as you realize that, and you let us know in advance that you may not submit your report on time. And then lastly, I wanted to remind you that the grant agreement contains all of the dates, all the due dates for your reports. I will not read them all, but you can go and refer to your grant agreement to find all of them. But I wanted to remind you that the next report is due April 30th. So we're like just under a couple of weeks till it's due. And this covers the period of January through March of 2020. Last thing, we move into the Q&A portion. The last part we wanted to share is that we wanted to reiterate that there is a force majeure provision in your grant agreement, and we invite you to go and revisit it. It's provision 21 and 22. And this provision, among other things, explains that if by any reason of force majeure a grantee's performance is delayed or prevented, then the performance by the grantee may be extended for the amount of time of such delay or prevention. We ask you to go and read it completely. This is not, I didn't read the full text. And also contact your grant manager if you believe there's significant delays or changes, so there may be like some changes to the work plan. As of now, we haven't. This is a conversation that needs to happen, one-on-one. So you may have questions regarding force majeure and saying, okay, should I submit a modification request? What do I do? And it's difficult to give like a statement for every person that would apply to each of the grantees. So this is something that you should discuss with your grant manager if you have any questions. So, and this is it. This concludes the webinar that we had planned, and now we move into the Q&A. So if you have any questions and you'd like to remain, you can do so. We're going to be here, 15 minutes, about 15 minutes. So if you have any questions, you can submit them right now.